Corporal Don Merritt, United States Army, Korea, the Forgotten War. I interviewed Don in Longmont, Colorado, April 7, 2007. We lost him in 2021 at the age of 89. But through his eyes and ears, you're going to learn, folks, more about the Korean War. And we need to learn about all these wars and the men and women who served our country, folks. Don was just a great interview. He was with the headquarters company, 1st Battalion, 17th Infantry Regiment, 7th Infantry Division. If you know your history, they are very important in the Korean War. Don fought at Pork Chop Hill. We don't have a lot of stories from Pork Chop Hill. You need to listen to it for nothing else but for that. I think Don held back in this interview. I think he really saw a lot more and experienced a lot more combat. But he was very reserved in what he said, but he shared it really well. But I can just see it. I just feel like he went through a lot. He may have forgotten a lot of it just because your defense mechanisms kick in when you're in combat. Maybe you forget some of the things. But he also fought on Hill 347 in Korea. Just a great man, a great story, and I'm just really happy to share it with you today. He was a rifleman, also in communications, and just from his perspective, the eyes and ears of what he went through. So I want to thank Bernie Zavala for making it possible for you to listen to Don's story today. Bernie, thank you for your support of my work and for your dedication to our country and our veterans. And in honor of Bernie's father, Sam Zavala, who's still with us at 94 years of age, he also served with the 7th Infantry Division in Korea, United States Army. I want to say hi to Sam. God bless you, Sam. I hope to meet you someday in this life. I really do. But Bernie, God bless you. Thank you, and keep your dad strong. And I really appreciate you, brother. I want to let you know that Don's story is featured in my 8th film, Korea, the Forgotten War. This is available at my website in the Honor Store. You go to larrycappetto.com. You can see it says Honor Store. I don't share these videos enough, but I have 5,000 of them in my garage, stacked to the ceiling, videos that I've had over the years. If somebody would like to buy the whole inventory, I'll give them to you really, really, really cheap. But these are great. You can donate them to schools, libraries, museums, veteran organizations. You can give them away as gifts. But I wanted to let you know this is my 8th film. My father also served during the Korean War. He never was in combat, but he served during this time too. Okay, folks, I'm out of here. I want you to watch Don's story. Thank you for watching and listening, sharing these stories, subscribing to this channel. And it's just been a labor of love, and I thank God I can serve Him and my country through the lens of my camera. Thank you. God bless you. And you were in the Army?
Yes.
Okay. How old were you at that time?
20.
Young man. How old are you now? I'm not good at math. Help me.
74.
You don't look 74, especially on camera. You look good. You look good. At that time, what was the mood of the country towards Korea? Or did really anybody even know anything about Korea when you went in?
Oh yeah. The town I lived in knew it real well because one of the kids that went through school with, he was 1 year ahead of me, but he just gotten killed at about the time I graduated. So in the town of Hamlin, which I lived in, was it wasn't very large, let's put it that way. It was right down on Lake Ontario in New York, and everyone knew each other, and it sort of hit home when they had one that lost their life there, really.
Did you enlist?
No, I was drafted.
And so where'd you go to basic training?
basic training and went to Fort Dix, New Jersey.
And during training, were you conscious of the fact that you're going to go to Korea, and were you apprehensive at all or fearful of that?
They tell you when you go in, there's only 1 out of every 10 it'll ever hit the front lines, but everyone took basic we went in with all went over at the same time too. So and
What was your MOS?
MOS when I went in was of course rifleman, and then after a while I had a chance to go for radio, learn how to, PRC 10 and that, and they get you off the front line for 3 days if you go back and train on it. So I did, and that's how I got to be a wireman, really.
So you were what was your job in Korea?
Wireman, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Communications, or is that what that is? Or?
Yeah, your radios, you had 2 kinds they used. One was a PR6. It was like like I told Dale, if you were within sight of each other, I think they were supposed to go to 3 miles, but in mountainous areas it didn't work that great. And then they had the big one, PRC 10 you carried, and that was better, but you get in the mountainous country and your old handheld little radio, or telephones really, and the wire run to it, was the most reliable, really.
So what month did you go to Korea?
Let's see, I got there February.
Of 52?
53.
53.
53.
Okay, so things are getting towards the end of that conflict or that war.
Mm-hmm.
What unit were you with over there? A company, battalion?
I was with the 17th Infantry Regiment and 7th Division.
And so this was February of 53.
Yeah.
Was it still cold then, or was it as bad as some of the times what I've heard about Korea?
The area we were in wasn't that bad at that point. It'd get cold at night, but there wasn't, you didn't have the snow or stuff like that. Not that bad, really. Now, north of that, yeah. But where we're located, no, it wasn't quite that bad.
So just tell me, obviously you got into some combat over there. Just tell me some of the engagements that you had, and tell me something about the enemy that you're fighting.
Let me put it this way. One of the first nights we got there, I was, of course, in the company rear at that time. That's where they put you when you first come in. And around midnight, they wake you up and take you up on the front lines and digging a spot really for a tank. I mean, everything seemed like it was being done at night, really. And this went on for, probably a week anyhow. And almost every night, you'd spend all night up there digging and picking, making places for the other. But one of the first things that happened was, in basic and everything else, they always tell you beware of a bounty attack. And so everyone had it in their mind on when it's going to happen. And I know one of those nights we're up there digging, all of a sudden, bugles were playing, pots and pans were banging like crazy, and then all of a sudden, people were yelling, and you got to realize they had speakers all over out there. Now, where they were, I don't know. I never seen one. But after all the noise, then all of a sudden they started playing Springtime in the Rockies. Now, I was from New York, but I don't know. was pretty neat, really. But then all of a sudden they said, we want to welcome Private Merritt, and there was another black guy came in with me. I think his name was Witt. And he says, I want to welcome those two to the 7th Division. They knew we were there. Now, needless to say, it scares the living tire right out of you. But nothing ever happened. We did find anytime there was, in fact, when Pork Chop and that got hit, it was never when there was a Bonzi attack or anything like that. It was always very quiet, really.
Well, tell me a little bit about Pork Chop Hill. You were there, right?
Yeah.
Most people know nothing about that. Even the 1959 movie, Gregory Peck's movie, you know, there's not a whole lot. But from a history standpoint, tell me a little bit about why it was called that, if you know, or what was involved in your participation in Pork Chop Hill.
I don't know. I think Pork Chop really, I think, was more or less the shape of it, I think, maybe. But it was just an outpost. The main MLR lines at that point were, where we were located was Hill 347. Now that was primarily the jumping point off. You were safe in that area, and then you went out, there was, there was a small river, and then you started going right up on Pork Chop, really.
Well, tell me about the enemy, the type of battle that was, and who was doing what, and what was the outcome?
Well, the big push was, the first big one was, I was involved in was, April. I can't think, but I think it was near the middle of April. But anyhow, the 7th Division got hammered real bad, and the Chinese wanted to take that hill. Now, and they tried, and well, I was just trying to think how many guys were lost, but some of the companies came back with, I think ours came back with 25 guys. But I mean, there was a lot of lives. There was either wounded or else killed, really.
Did the Chinese occupy that hill, or did you
at that time
to take it? So who was on that hill?
They were trying to take it. Actually, it belonged to the U.S., or we had it at that time, but it just used it as an outpost. And then there's, from the outpost also is what they call an LP, a listening post, and that's where when they would go out for on patrols at night, and again, this is mostly when things started, the listening post person, if he saw anything, was supposed to refer back to the outpost and then all the way right back to the company rear. And of course, they could direct in either artillery or mortar or whatever they happen to have, but are needed. But half the time, some of the time the guys would go to sleep. It was noted a few times that they took sleeping bags with them, which is not good, let's face it. But you gotta agree too, the enemy was, they were very sneaky and very good, really.
So what about any combat you got into? I mean, are you as close to the enemy as you and I are? What kind of weapon do you have? And just tell me about some of the combat you had.
Combat I had was primarily when I was as a wireman, and you were going back and forth because there was so much artillery on the hill. That commo wire was always getting cut, so it was you just get it strung and seems like bingo, it went out again. But yeah, I had a few times. Well, one time I came going down a trench, and I met a Chinese guy at the same time coming at me. And truthfully, we both froze. I had the little carbine, M2 carbine, really, I carried. And if it wasn't for the guy behind me, GI, I probably wouldn't be here now, really. He's the one that finally shot the Chinese guy. But then we got looking, and that kid, he was only around 14, 15 years old. In a way, I was very glad I was still alive, but on the other hand, it makes you sick to see young kids as bad shape as they are. And one thing, we did everything in trenches over there. And those trenches were built up real good. And then, let's see, in July, that was the one that I came the closest on, really. And the trenches at that point, in fact, the Koreans, Chinese and Koreans, they had half the hill they owned at that point. And it was only one part that the U.S. had, or Americans. And most of those guys were in bunkers. I mean, because there was so much artillery coming through, they were just hiding, really. But there was one part in the trench that was covered for, I don't know, 50 feet, maybe something like that. But primarily it was, you had to get down through there, especially string and wire and that. And one of the worst things I think I ever seen in my life is you're walking on dead bodies. And I would never make a doctor, that's for sure. I think I upchucked down how many times just getting through a mess, really. But those, where it was covered was half blown off at that point. I don't know how many artillery rounds came in, or mortar rounds. The biggest thing really was grenades. And when the Chinese would come, they would come in swarms. The first one would be carrying the gun. If you were ever in a spot where you could watch them from the side, the first wave would have the rifles. And as they got knocked down, the other ones just carried grenades. And they would pick up the rifle from the one before. But that was how they worked it. But anyhow, in the July end of it, and that was, I turned 21 in there, and I didn't know it for about 3 or 4 days after it was over, really. But I was out there stringing wire, and things weren't going good, let's put it that way. They had sent quite a few individual companies to take the pork chop, and most of them got pinned down one way or the other. And where the Chinese had it, they had control. That's all there was to it. And we couldn't get around too awful much. Anyhow, the river, you went through, when you first started, you could walk through that thing, and it was maybe, I think first time I went through was maybe around waist high. And that was just before you started going up into the pork chop. We had so much rain and then the hot sun, and it ended up at that river was flowing like crazy. The what little bridge they had, that was going. And I know they had an outfit in, and I don't know who it was. It did put on another bridge so that the personnel carriers could get across there, because that's how they were taking the wounded out, really, was these PC carriers. But in the midst of all this, why, someone Howard bug out, so I did. I don't know what day it was, I wouldn't dare say. But anyhow, I remember getting to the river, and everything went blank then. I don't know what happened, truthfully. I was never wounded. I lost my hearing for a couple weeks, but that was just from the noise.
Well,
But-
did the war end in July?
The war ended in July, yeah.
So where were you when it ended?
Well, it was right at this time when I was going down, bugging out really, getting out of there, getting to the back. And I woke up the next day and I was laying in a mud puddle, and a soldier kicked me and wanted to know if I was alive. And I said, yeah. And he said, who are you? And I told him. He said, what outfit? And I said, 7th Division, 17th. Well, this was in a different division. Now how I got over there, I do not know. But come find out, I was about 20 miles from where I should be. I know that. And they took me back by Jeep. And shortly after that, the company went into the company rear. And that's probably 4 miles behind the front lines. And that's when the peace treaty was signed. And I know they called us all out, had a formation on it. Everyone just said, well, we're glad, and went back in and went to sleep, really. I mean, you were dead tired. That's the whole thing of it.
Well, did that experience change you as a person going into combat and coming out? Did that change you, or are you the same at going in, coming out?
Oh, I don't know. I had bad dreams for, probably the first year after I got out, but...
What did you dream about? I mean...
probably imagine back, don't remember now what it was, but I know my wife at that time, she'd wake me up in the middle of the night every now and then. But I think it was just from some of the crap you go through, really. But
Yeah, and so, coming back home even, I mean, was it hard to come back home, or did you stay in the military, or when did you get out?
no, I got out, let's see, came back and got out, let's see, I had to stay another, it was, I had to stay another year. I got back here in June or July of '54, and came into Seattle by boat. And anyone that lived east of the Mississippi, they flew you home. Anyone west, of course, they had to take either bus or train. I'm not sure which, really. But no, I did not stay in the service. They were asking people, in fact, even offering to send them to school for helicopter pilot, stuff like that. And I think there was probably a couple of guys took up on it, but I was married and I was more interested in getting home. That's all I was doing, really.
Did you lose any friends in Korea, wounded or killed?
When I was there, two of the guys I went through basic training, yeah, didn't make it. They were not in my outfit. Because when I went over, they stop you in Japan for 3 days. And those 3 days, that's when they give you all your fatigues. Of course, up until then, you got Class A uniforms and that. But they issue you your rifle. You go through training on their religion over there, and then they tell you what outfit you're going to be in. And for me, well, all the guys I went in basic with, I was the only one that went to 7th Division. Most of them went, I think it was the 24th, I'm not sure. But anyhow, when we did come home, we all met other than the two guys. And yeah, it was pretty neat. It was like an old homecoming then, really. And none of them stayed in service, no. They all got out.
Did you see, how did you contact me? Through the paper or through the 9 News show, or what did you?
I saw you on 9 News.
Okay. Did you see it yourself, or?
I just saw a little bit of it.
What kind of prompted you to maybe give me a call? Just to talk, have you ever told your stories before, or?
No, never have. I don't know. Some things you never say, and I don't know. Someone that was interested in, I thought, well, let you know anyhow.
Well, they refer to Korea as the Forgotten War. Why do you think that is?
For one thing, during Vietnam, you had a lot of people refusing to go in service, let's put it this way. In the area we lived in, of course, Canada was within 60 miles from where we lived. And there was a lot of guys that, yeah, they would go to Canada to get out of being drafted, really, is what it amounts to. You never seen this or heard this in the Korean end of it. I don't ever remember any drugs over there. I did hear that they said a lot of the Chinese and the Koreans were into the drugs, but now whether they were or not, I don't know. But I think the group that we were in, we went in, you did your 2 years, and you were happy to get out, and you didn't complain about it, really. You don't hear too many people from the Korean War hollering as much, well, let's put it this way. They just put a memorial in D.C. here. I got pictures of it. What was that, about 6-7 years ago?
The Korean War Memorial?
Yeah.
The Korean one?
Yeah. Yeah, I got a couple pictures here of it, but that I took. But so I think the guys were more quiet on it, really. And after they did get home, they got on with their lives, and that was it.
Are you proud that you're a Korea veteran?
Am I what?
Are you proud that you're a Korean War veteran?
Oh, yeah.
Do people thank you for that?
Like when we went to that over in Greeley that they had, yeah, they were more than good on it, really. As far as having, when you got home or anything like that, no. Half the people maybe didn't even know when you got home, really. I mean, like I say, you were happy to get home, and that was all there was to it. started off with your life, and that was it. In my case, we bought some property and was building a house ourselves, my wife and I. So I more or less forgot all about Korea, really. I mean,
What should people remember about Korea?
for me, it would be the pork chop area. Now I know there's a lot of them that were involved on that big push that went up to the Yellow River, and in fact, my outfit was one of them that made it to the Yellow River. And I think there was only two, was it 1st Marines and I think it was 7th Division was the only ones that made it. But now after they got coming back, they more or less got frostbite and everything else. And you talk to a lot of the guys, and they'll refer to that more than anything else. Now that I was not involved with, so
What about like the Chosen Reservoir,
yeah, it was
that campaign?
up in that area, yeah, and it was before I got there. So thank heaven, I'm glad I didn't have to go through it. Really,
Well, tell me what the American flag means to you as a veteran and as an American citizen.
means a lot. Very proud of it, really. I think probably more so now than probably before I went in service, really. But yeah, it does. You're very proud of it, and yeah, you think the world of it, really.
How about the price for freedom? What would you tell a young person today who knows nothing about the sacrifices made for our country? How would you communicate to them a message of freedom not being free and the price for freedom?
Well, let's face it, every war we've had for the freedom, there's been a lot of lives lost. World War II is a big example of that. My brother was in World War II. But then you get the Korean end of it. There was a lot of lives lost over there just for it. In Vietnam, had the same thing. I mean, it just goes on every war, really. The one that's going on now, I don't think there's half as many lives being lost. Well, I know there isn't, but for the duration that's gone on. But on the other hand, you've got an awful lot of people walking around wounded at one limb or missing one. It's sad, really.
Yeah, it is. It's the price for freedom, you know?
It's a price, and you got to pay it. I agree. Sometimes it makes you wonder if it's worthwhile and when you are in, but yeah, it's all personal, I think, on whether you think that war is worth it. Let's face it. The Korean War, as far as I was concerned, was primarily a civil war. And it ended up just about the way it was to begin with, really. Because I was always thinking, the last 20 years of going back over and seeing if I could see pork chop and that. But then I realized you can't get in that area anyhow because it's demilitarized zone, so it definitely wouldn't be worth it.
You saw what was going on Pork Chop Hill. You're involved with that.
Yeah. As a wireman, you were working with forward observers could be for the mortars. Of course, you saw quite a few of them from the artillery and quite a few different guys you used to get to see and talk to quite a bit, and makes you wonder whatever happened to a lot of them, whether they made it or what.
That's about it. I don't get a lot of people that have been around Pork Chop Hill, so I was kind of interested in hearing what you had to say about that.
It was just another outpost, that's all. And in the very end, they gave it to the Chinese. But at that point, I was not on the front lines when they did it. And I think I read where they got most all the wounded, and I know they got all the wounded and the dead. I think they got quite a few of them off too, or most of them. I know at one time, right after we got off, they were asking for volunteers to help carry the litters down, and I wish I had a camera at that time, because you could follow them from the road, and there would just be hundreds and hundreds, just two guys, one on either end of the stretcher, and just one right after another constantly. But like I say, my stomach wasn't that good for that stuff, and I did not volunteer.
So is this a part of your life today, or is Korea a thing of the past?
Oh, I think it's a thing of the past, really. You forget all about it, really, an awful lot, until, I forgot all about it, truthfully, until last year about this time when they had that deal in Greeley, and I thought that was pretty neat.
I'm glad they did that. I wish I could have been a part of that. That's good.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Well, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing I ask all the veterans at the end of the interview. When I tell you from where you're seated, can you give me a salute into the camera? When I tell you to?
Sure.
Okay. That was a good practice. Okay, right into the camera, Don. All right, thank you. Good.